Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of Comic Relief, the live weekly talk show for all things comics, cartoons, and anything else that makes you want to get nerdy with it. We are your hosts. I'm Xndr.
I'm Jagger.
And tonight we are giving our review of Season 1 of Amazon Prime's Invincible, and joining us to talk about it is our friend, live from the remote oasis of New Jersey, Mormon. Mormon, say hello.
Hello, how's everyone doing?
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you come from? What you do?
I'm a live streamer on Twitch. I do variety streaming. I taste test Switch games on Fridays to see which ones have the worst bittering agent, because, fun fact, they cover them in the same stuff you use to keep kids from sucking their thumbs, that kids don't choke and die on them.
There you
play
go.
all sorts of games.
That's actually news to me. You recently told me about that today. Actually, I was just like, wait, hold on. He was like, we were just messaging back and forth, and he was like tasting cartridges. I was like, wait, hold on. Now, when you say taste cartridges, what exactly do you mean by that? So it's actually interesting. I didn't realize that they did that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out which ones have the worst taste and see if there's a rhyme and reason to why.
Yeah, because I think we were talking about it, and according to your findings, it seems as though some of the like the more like adult related titles don't really have much of anything on there, because I mean kids are probably not playing those games.
Yep, and then also that adult ones do tend to have duller colors as well. So I'm wondering if it's a thing of considering it candy versus not.
I mean, also, what adult in their right mind would put a Switch game in their mouth?
I don't know that I'm in my right mind, but
I would say I would venture to guess maybe some adults might have like a kind of like a fidget going on. So that's the only thing I can think of as to why that would happen. But anyway, on to some news actually, because our good friend Jagger over here last week came down with a pretty bad stomach bug.
That bum. What's he thinking missing a week?
But luckily, it seems as though that you are in much better shape.
Much better, definitely.
Trying to kill off some zombies lately on the new Resident Evil. How's that going for you?
I'm not talking about that. I showed you the clip, okay?
Yeah.
Fetus McGee does not belong here.
If anyone's paying attention to Resident Evil, you should go check out Jagger's stream at twitch.tv/Jagger_VHS. He's covering some quality Resident Evil content over there. But
and by that he means lots of content and streams.
But onto some news. Do you want to start us off, Jagger?
Yeah, so we have confirmation, or mostly confirmed, that Cersei is going to be our main character of Eternals, which is pretty dope. It'd be nice to see the story through their perspective.
Which is interesting too, because Cersei is also played by a returning actress. She was originally one of the characters on Captain Marvel, right?
Yes, she was one of the side characters in Captain Marvel in the prequel, and they brought her back as a main cast member of the Eternals, which I guess she's going to be our main character who we focus on. So that's kind of cool that she's going to get her time to shine in this movie. There's rumors going around of a potential Isaiah Bradley prequel about his time as Captain America, essentially, as our black super soldier, which would be very interesting to see.
Yeah, I think right now it was mostly the showrunner was kind of he was taking to social media kind of saying that he would like to see that happen if they were to kind of plan it out so that could happen. He would be the first one to sign up and be like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a good show for them to do.
Yeah.
So we're also getting reports that more MCU movies are going to be announced on top of the current lineup, suggesting that there are things that are going to get announced as we learn more. just as once Falcon and the Winter Soldier finished, Captain America 4 got announced. We don't have a date for that yet, but we know that that's coming. So I guess as Phase 4 unfolds for us, they'll announce more stuff that would, I guess, be spoilers if you hadn't seen the movies otherwise.
That interests me too, because like what could come about in the near future that is like, oh, they've had this planned all along. It's kind of
right.
It's kind of got me like a little antsy about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do.
Let's see. Next up, we also have some comic accurate Hawkeye and Echo set photos, along with some of the set photos that we've seen already with Miss Marvel and everything, which I thought was pretty interesting to see Hawkeye in his signature purple. That was pretty cool. We also, like I said, the Miss Marvel full costume. We have that as well. We also have a rumor that the first trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home is supposed to drop either June or July. I take that with a heavy grain of salt because I've heard Spider-Man No Way Home is pretty much on par with WandaVision in terms of rumors. There's been so much going on. I almost knocked over my water. But yeah, so we'll hold on to hope that we get our first trailer for Spider-Man. Black Panther 2.
Well, hold on. My speculation for the Spider-Man trailer, I think they're either going to drop it with Black Widow or sometime during Loki, similar to how they did with Shang-Chi.
Oh, okay.
I think they're going to keep it running with the hype of their shows and movie releases. So either when Black Widow comes out, the Spider-Man trailer is with that, or it's going to drop sometime after that. Because we know for a fact that Taskmaster is the villain in the Black Widow movie, and Taskmaster has ties to Spider-Man in the comics.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that they might be waiting for that to drop. So I mean, I think June or July would be a good time for them to drop a trailer for it, especially given the release time between when they did the Shang-Chi trailer and when that comes out. The Venom trailer just dropped, and when that's going to come out, I mean,
that would also go in line with the reports that, you know, MCU movies are going to be announced as things come to fruition.
Right.
So yeah, that makes sense. That checks out.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm still holding on hope. I really want to see some Spider-Man, man. Like, that's my top dog right there, Spider-Man. Up next, we got Black Panther 2 to be rewritten in respect to the late Chadwick Boseman. I've heard, you know, there've been rumors where like, okay, so are they gonna recast him? Are they gonna have? I remember there was a pull for getting Michael B. Jordan, like do some alternate universe type stuff with Michael B. Jordan, and they would cast him as it. But it looks as though that they're going to be honoring Chadwick Boseman through this movie. So I'm interested to see how that plays out.
Which, on that note, while we're on that beat, the official title for Black Panther 2 got announced, as well as the official title for Captain Marvel 2. Black Panther 2 is officially going to be called Wakanda Forever, and Captain Marvel 2 is officially called The Marvels, which the logo pays homage to all Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Miss Marvel.
Yep.
All with their logos.
So that's going to be interesting to see all three of them in one film.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we've already seen Monica, or Spectrum, as I believe that's the name that they're going to be going with. Right. We've seen her in WandaVision, and then we're going to be seeing Miss Marvel in her own Disney Plus show coming soon. And then we'll have all three of them back in a movie.
All the Marvels.
So, let's see what else do we got. So at the time of writing my notes, the filming for Thor: Love and Thunder was to wrap up in 4 weeks, so that would leave us at 2 weeks now. It should wrap up in about 2 weeks, and I keep seeing this main like quote from, I think it was actually from Taika Waititi himself, stating that he claims that Thor: Love and Thunder is going to be the best Marvel movie to date.
Oh, that's a big boast.
Yeah.
That's a really big boast.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's it. I've seen Taika Waititi's work. You've seen Taika Waititi's work. I wouldn't be quick to deny that. I think that it might end up being.
Hang on, Xander. That means he has to outdo the great Joss Whedon. Like, I'm kidding. No, he has to outdo the Russo brothers.
Fair. That is
being,
fair.
Being serious, I mean, a lot of the work that the Russo brothers have done with the MCU is all of the top tier movies.
Mm-hmm.
Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. Those are all Russo brothers projects, and those are your top tier MCU films. And
Yeah.
I mean, followed quickly by Ragnarok, which is Taika Waititi.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he could definitely be considered up there in the top tier with the Russo brothers as far as MCU films, but I don't think they're gonna knock Infinity War and Endgame off their pedestal.
Interesting.
Because those two movies were a culmination of years and nearly a decade of work. Like you kind of can't knock that spectacle off the top.
I think that's the hard part in comparing, because you're comparing a movie that has had so much leading up to it to a movie that is essentially, I mean, you could argue that there have been other movies leading up to this next Thor film, but in essence, in a new phase of Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, it is kind of its own standalone thing. So it is kind of hard to compare it in that aspect. Let's see.
Yeah, but I'm interested to see what they do with Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
So
I actually tweeted out a long time ago when Thor: Love and Thunder was first announced and that Jane was going to be the female Thor. What was it? I tweeted out to Taika Waititi. I even tagged him in it. I said, if you don't play Jane by Jefferson Starship when she transforms into female Thor for the first time, I'm out.
That'd be great. That would be good. I mean, it's definitely Waititi style for sure.
Oh yeah,
he would do it.
Just imagine like a slow walk out, like she's fucking badass, and then you just have Jane by Jefferson Starship playing that fucking guitar solo in the background. Like, come on.
Yeah, good.
Let's see. Picking up. You want to pick up the next couple?
Yeah. So there's rumors going around that Henry Cavill, upon his exit from the DC universe, since Warner Brothers wants to be stupid about it, is going to be joining the MCU. People are speculating that he's going to be Hercules or Captain Britain. Both would be fantastic for him. And I think he would do very well in the MCU, given the fact that I still can't get over how they did it. Warner Brothers essentially broke up with Henry Cavill on his and my birthday. Like, I'm sitting there Wednesday and I'm like, oh wow, I share a birthday with Henry Cavill. Oh, Henry Cavill was fired today. What? Like, they officially said that there will be no Henry Cavill Superman sequel at Warner Brothers.
Yep.
So
I found it funny. I saw a post. It was like Warner Brothers unfollows Henry Cavill on social media. Oh, come to find out, Henry Cavill never even followed them in the first place.
Just how much respect he has for Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Let's see. While we're on the MCU, there's rumors that certain characters from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. may appear in the future MCU properties, but recasted.
Now, actually, I saw something just like 5 minutes before we started. Say it was a rumor saying that they're actually planning a soft reboot of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like characters and stories. But keeping some of the same actors, but treating them as new characters in a sense.
Because I heard a rumor going around that Ming-Na Wen was going to come back as her character. Because a lot of fans really liked her, and I think she would do well, especially if they put her on, like, alongside Jimmy Woo. Like,
yeah, that would be
kind of
interesting.
flesh out that idea that everybody had of him doing like a superhero movie cleanup kind of deal.
Yeah,
sort of how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was supposed to be.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. I would also say, please bring back Chloe Bennett's Quake.
I'll give you that one too. Yeah,
like she did a phenomenal job with that, and I think they need to keep going with that. I mean, quite honestly, I dropped off of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Probably after like whenever they started going to space. Really,
I stopped when they brought in right after they brought in Ghost Rider.
Okay, that was shortly after where I dropped off.
Okay.
But it just got kind of convoluted after a while.
A little bit, yeah.
But I mean, that's also to say, I got so used to the idea of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. being within the MCU, and then when it was finally clear to me that it was no longer a part of the MCU, I was like, okay, this is kind of trash. Even though I had already gotten invested into some of the characters, which was unfortunate, but you know.
Alrighty. Next we got the Marvel Studios put out a video called "See What the Movies," and it gave us our first look at the Eternals, some more clips from Black Widow, and more clips from Shang-Chi, and that's where we got our announcements for what Black Panther 2 and Captain Marvel 2's titles will be. It was really cool seeing all that stuff, and I was kind of I know Xander and I both got kind of emotional when we saw that video, because it was like they're officially announcing like our semi return to normalcy, because all of their properties are basically going to be released in theaters, and this is Marvel Studios saying, hey, look, we know Disney Plus is doing their thing over there with the Premier Access thing, but like these movies were meant to be seen at the theater. Go to the theater.
Yeah, and having worked at the movie theater, there's something about you know, the ambiance, the you know, taking your family or your friends to the movie theater, getting that popcorn, getting those red vines,
unsticking your shoes from the floor.
Like there's something about it that you can't replace that. It's a lot like how I know a lot of people feel about, you know, drive-in movie theaters. We need to bring that stuff back. You know, it's just a pinnacle of U.S. history when it comes to entertainment.
It is,
and they were hurting really bad from the pandemic. And also I got really choked up because it started out with a monologue from Stan Lee, and it kind of like closed on Chadwick Boseman. Both of that, I was just like, oh fuck.
Yep.
Oh man. It
was a well done short. I suggest people check it out for sure.
Yeah. Some newer news right here.
Yep.
Andrew Garfield denies rumors of appearing in No Way Home, even after like we've seen his signature on the board of like when they wrapped up production. They had like a whole board of everyone's like the cast and crew signatures, and Andrew Garfield's signature was there. He's already been spotted in set photos.
They have set photos of him. They have his signature, like, and then he's just like, no, I'm not in the movie. He's trying to pull a vision on us, and it's not working. A reverse vision. He's like, no, I'm not in there. It's not true. It's like, okay, buddy.
Yeah.
You're not in the movie. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Let's see. Blade will begin shooting in July 2022.
I can't wait for that movie. I'm so excited for a new Blade film.
I'm interested because I know a lot of people were giving it flack for being PG-13. Disney has stated that Deadpool will be the only property that's rated R.
I get it.
I'm definitely on the bandwagon of, if it's written properly, if it's executed properly, you could still get away with something like that being PG-13. You can really push it to the very limit.
Yep.
Let's see. Loki episodes will air on Wednesdays as opposed to the Fridays that we're used to with Captain America and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision.
Which is interesting. I'm kind of curious why they're doing Wednesdays instead of Fridays.
Which will work out for us because since we're going to be covering that episodically, we can kind of do like okay, we're going over the previous episode. We'll, you know,
right before the new episode.
Yeah, the new episode will be the next day, so that'll be interesting.
So there's rumor mill is starting up pretty heavily about Multiverse of Madness, the next Doctor Strange film, and now the rumor mill is spitting out that Shuma Gorath is possibly going to be in it, which completely tracks. But I feel like this is another one of those like rabbit hole chase things, like Mephisto.
Yeah.
There are so many other characters that would make way more sense for Multiverse of Madness. I mean, I feel like their most obvious choice is going to be to revisit Dormammu, because he was teased more or less in the first Doctor Strange film.
Yeah.
and a lot of his influence can be seen throughout some of the other MCU films and properties. Like most of it points to Dormammu or Mephisto.
Yeah, which I would actually prefer to see both Mephisto and Dormammu, kind of some sort of exchange there.
Yeah, I could see that.
The Shumagorath thing, I feel like, I don't know,
I think that's stretching way too far.
I think that's spawning off of people seeing like the trailer for the new Suicide Squad and seeing what was it, the Starfish dude? I can't.
Oh yeah. I think Dexstar.
Husky, you want to help me out if you're still here? But I think they saw that and they're like, oh, you know, Starro, yeah, there you go.
Starro, that's his name.
And Marvel's gonna fire back with Shumagorath. I don't like that.
No, I don't think they care that much. I mean, honestly, MCU can just stand on its own without having to fight back with DC. I mean, they're kind of just fighting with themselves at this point.
Yeah. Let's see. We got the Guardians 3, Dave Bautista. We touched on that already.
Yeah, with
let's see. We got our first look at Jordan Fisher as Bart Allen. For the the Arrowverse is what they're calling it.
Yeah, the CW verse.
Yeah. I prefer CW verse because like isn't Arrow like long gone?
Yeah, Arrow finished last season. But okay. I mean, it's been known as the Arrowverse for so long, so a lot of people just kind of stick with calling it the Arrowverse, specifically because now that Arrow's gone, the universe is kind of struggling to hold on.
Yeah.
CW is kind of canceling all of their good series because Batwoman didn't take off. Legends of Tomorrow is kind of failing. The Flash is getting a little drawn out, similar to how Arrow was feeling, so it's going to end soon. Supergirl is getting, I think, canceled, and they're canceling Black Lightning. So they're basically shooting themselves down to the point where Arrowverse is ending because Arrow ended.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's kind of like, you know, the age-old saying, you know, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a terrible, terrible universe.
Yeah.
But I am actually excited to see Jordan Fisher as Bart Allen, mainly because I'm a huge Jordan Fisher fan.
Yeah.
I do some singing on the side, and he's got a wonderful fucking voice, as well as he is wildly good at Valorant. like absurdly good. But lastly, we have our first official trailer for Venom.
I'm so excited for this film. So right off the bat, I noticed that they fixed what a lot of the fans were complaining about with Cletus Cassidy, his fucking haircut.
Yep.
He doesn't look like a pasted on wig.
Yeah, that was terrible. Especially when for the original set photos came out with Woody Harrelson, and I saw what his hair looked like, and he was wearing like some like weird green jacket or some shit. I was like, what in God's name is happening right now?
Well, I mean, Cletus Cassidy is a very eccentric character, so I mean, they could literally put him in anything, and it'll be, oh yeah, that's Cletus Cassidy, cool. But right off the bat, we get this nice scene with Eddie and Venom making breakfast, and it's chaotic as hell. And I think it's nice to see that they're playing off of the relationship that they have together and that they've built as symbiotes, basically, of each other. That was like the shining star of the first film, is the relationship between Eddie and Venom. So they're playing off of that really heavily here, and then on top of that, the first looks at Carnage. Carnage looks beastly.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't look super hulked out like they made Riot. He actually looks spindly and gross and kind of terrifying, but he still has all of his like blood weapons and things behind him. And we didn't get too much of a look, which I'm happy about because I want to still be in shock and awe when I see the film and have some surprises. I don't want to see too much.
Yeah. I'm definitely interested to see how they spin this, because the original story of, you know, Venom and Carnage is that Eddie Brock was sent to jail, but he still had the Venom symbiote, and the symbiote had spawned off an offspring, and that became Carnage. And Cletus Cassidy was his cellmate, and you know, Bob's your uncle. But I'm interested to see how they play this up, because it looks as though something happened when he was getting a lethal injection, and then it just like went from there.
Yeah. So I'm thinking also that they're gonna try and tie in the Shriek storyline because of the woman they kept showing in the trailer.
Yeah.
I think that's a subtle tease that the Venom symbiote somewhere along the line has made the offspring of Carnage and Shriek, and then I think they're gonna try and tie in that they have other offspring as well. So we'll get the other symbiotes as well in the future.
That'll be interesting. A couple of notable Easter eggs I picked up on too were there's a nice little cameo of Stan Lee actually, as he's walking through the convenience store, and it was like right when Venom kind of pokes his like tentacle out and like kind of does like a salute to the lady at the convenience store. You see, or I think he actually fixes the magazine. The magazine actually on the cover of the magazine is a picture of Stan Lee.
Oh, okay.
I noticed that. There's a little bit where Cletus Cassidy smacks a spider on the table. A nice little nod to Spider-Man, as well as one of the, I guess he was like an investigator or a detective or something like that. He was reading the Daily Bugle.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that they might have moved things to the New York side of the world kind of deal. Also, they actually gave the prison that they visit Cletus Cassidy in a name. They do say that it's Ravencroft. So that's comic accurate as well.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see how they tie things in, because I know it's not going to be like from what they've said, it's not going to be like direct, like, oh yeah, Spider-Man exists here, but they're like alluding to that now. They're making their way over there. But yeah, I think that wraps it up for the news.
2 weeks worth of news covered in half an hour.
Yeah, there's a lot of news that came out in that 2 weeks. But now on to the big stuff right here, Invincible. So I'm gonna go ahead and shoot out my spoiler alert real quick. So if you haven't seen the show yet, we will be getting into spoilers for this. Which this is the type of show where spoilers are like everything. Because like every single episode, I loved it. It ended with a what the fuck moment, like that like,
every time. Every episode left you with wanting more, and every episode's like twist ending built on the storyline, and there's like this overarching story of what the fuck is going on. That's the theme of the show. What the fuck is going on? Yeah. And then when they finally reveal what the hell is going on, like you're kind of like, oh no, that's what's going on. So you have to watch it from the beginning and not get anything spoiled for you, which, I mean, if you're in meme culture at all, you have at least one bit spoiled for you. Yeah. The memes are everywhere.
So as someone who has read the comic, did you have any of those what the fuck moments?
There was a little bit they did that diverted from the comic. Clancy Brown's Damien Darkblood is entirely different than he was in the comic, because in the comic he is a joke throwaway character. He shows up months after the climactic fight, and he's like, the killer is, and everyone's like, yeah, we've known that for a really long time. And then he just kind of says, and goes away. Interesting. And it was like, why have this character? So I know I read something somewhere that said that they might bring him back, but I don't see where they would do that.
Well, that'd be interesting to see. Like, so throughout this season, they kind of use him as a plot device to kind of carry on the whole like investigation on Omni-Man, and then they banish him. So now that you say that, it'd be interesting if, like, in season 2, they bring him back as that gag where he finally comes back and he says, "The killer's Omni-Man." And you're like, yeah, we know, like, because now we know.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That is interesting. Any other? Because I know we talked briefly about, it was one of the episodes where you said that some people might feel that this is kind of like a filler episode, but it actually sets up something later down the line.
Yes. I think that was... So the second to last episode, or no, yes, the second to last with the college. All of that is amazingly important to the show. Rick is a very important character. He makes plenty of appearances throughout the rest of the comic. D.A. Sinclair is extremely important to the comic because as they show at the end of the episode, he's kind of, actually they show more in the last episode, he's working with Cecil in making the Reanimen army.
Right.
And that causes a huge schism between Mark and Cecil eventually, because Mark wasn't there for any of the Reanimen stuff. He's already moved well beyond where those bodies were. And so unless he goes back and specifically sees them, he doesn't know that Cecil has those.
So Cecil's kind of like that. You know, he's playing that fine line between good and evil. At least right now.
Yeah, Cecil is literally only about the pursuit of what is best for the world. He does not care about anyone or anything beyond preserving the world. So he will sell anyone and everyone out to ensure that.
That's interesting.
So,
kind of what I like about his character, honestly. He's kind of like that take no shit. We do what we have to do because we have to do it kind of character. And I think this show really needs that kind of character.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much stuff. The Mahler twins stay a very important part throughout the series. Robot is massive.
I thought that was interesting. So I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that the robot was like this like morphed like fetus looking thing, and then
don't say fetus.
And then he ends up like using the Mahler twins to create a new body for him.
In the comics, it was interesting because they showed that well before they showed Omni-Man destroying the equivalent of the Justice League, analog.
Yeah, because in the comic, Omni-Man killing the Guardians of the Globe is way later, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's significantly later. The reason they did that with the show so early was, for the one part, with the comic, it was like a huge thing that had everyone gasping like, oh my God. But since the comic was so accessible to so many people, they were like, well, we're not going to have that, gasp factor here. So we might as well have people wondering about Omni-Man from the start.
Well, it definitely had that gasp factor at the end of like the first episode, because it's what hooked me. Because I started watching it, I'm like, okay, this is just another superhero cartoon. It's just going to be like, all right, he's like Spider-Man. He now has his powers. I equated the first episode basically to Sky High up until that moment with the Guardians of the Globe. And then I was just like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I think I remember I spoke with Jagger and Husky after the first episode. It was just like I think we watched the first 2 episodes or something like that. And it was like, the first episode seemed like your normal, typical superhero show. Then all of a sudden that happened. And then right after in episode 2, it's like, oh yeah, everything that happened at the end of episode 1, that's the norm. It's going to be gory. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be fucking like crazy.
And I think they handled it very well, honestly, translating that moment from being such a shock factor to those that were reading the comics as they were coming out to capturing an audience within the first episode.
Fantastically done, and I like the fact that it very clearly shows that Omni-Man's superhero analog isn't really as accurate as, say, Omni-Man's Goku analog, where he was sent to the world to conquer and destroy rather than hang out and protect.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, no, they spun off with that. That's fantastic. They changed up the Amber character a little bit. The girlfriend, and rather than make her completely baffled when he says I'm invincible, she's like, I figured that out a while ago. I'm just upset you didn't tell me.
I think that's probably a nice change though, because I feel like at this point a lot of people who have been watching comic books, it's kind of like with the Clark Kent thing, like just like, what the fuck, you're putting on glasses, we know it's you, okay, like what the fuck. But like if someone is hanging out around this person, you're gonna pick up on things. You're gonna pick up like, okay, so why is this person always late? Why is this person always like absent or whatever? How is it that I never see these 2 people in the same place at the same time? Kind of thing. And people are much smarter than that. So I think it's nice to see that more often than not. Like kind of like in Spider-Man Far From Home, when when MJ pretty much figures out that he's Spider-Man, and he's like, oh no, I'm not Spider-Man. And then finally come to find out, yeah, I'm Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They're doing away with the damsel love interest, and they're doing more of a strong, competent woman love interest, which I think is a significantly better thing. You know, you don't need someone rescued every 2 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I do know they made a few other changes from the comics, like Shrinking Ray is a male character in the comics. They made her female in the show. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. He was a male character. He was basically your Ray Palmer analog.
Mm-hmm. I think the move to making her female, it didn't change the essence of the character too much, and I think it plays very well to the strengths of the voice actors that were cast for this show.
And it also adds a little bit more of that diversity to the new Guardians of the Globe, as opposed to being fairly homogenized.
Yeah, because I mean, at that point, it would just be Duplicate and Monster Girl would be the only female characters on the Guardians, right?
Correct. And then the other thing too is it's nice. I haven't seen it mentioned in a whole ton of places, but this is a Kirkman property. So it's the same guy that does The Walking Dead, which is why we have so many Walking Dead actors making appearances. Obviously, Stephen Yeun and Lauren. I don't remember the last name.
Lauren Cohen.
So they've got all of that going on, and I like the fact the comic was always a coming of age, but in a more realistic fashion. Not just like, let's focus on the superpowers, but let's focus on a superpowered person growing up.
Yeah, it's a great thing, and the nice thing about this, the nice thing about Kirkman doing this show is he's always been such a huge fan of the comic. Like, it's always been one of his favorite comics. I mean, it's even made a couple appearances in The Walking Dead. There's a scene early on in the show where you see Carl in the woods and he's reading an episode of Invincible.
Yeah,
like,
it's a phenomenal piece, and I'm intrigued to see if one of his other properties, The Astonishing Wolfman, will make an appointment here as well, because him and Mark do have interactions.
Oh wow!
I mean, isn't there also crossovers between Invincible and the MCU or the Marvel universe?
The artist for Invincible was doing Marvel Team Up, which he did an issue with Invincible and Spider-Man coming together, which was a great moment because it had Peter doing the whole great power, great responsibility thing, and then Invincible ripping on the fact that, you know, the name of the characters in the Marvel universe were so, you know, on the nose. Spider-Man, you have the powers of a spider, and he's like, that's it? Really? That's the best you've got?
Wow, when he's literally named Invincible.
Yeah, right. I was about to say, like that's a lot of talk coming from someone just named Invincible.
Cute title card.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love that too, the title card, with the fact that every episode was a little bit more splatter of blood on there.
Yeah, and in the last episode, they just kind of jumped it on there.
I also like how it was kind of like woven into the conversation that they were having at the time too. I like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, there were a couple times where I almost forgot that the title card didn't even show up yet, and all of a sudden, boom, right there. I was like,
they're about
to
say Invincible, and then here comes the title card.
Yeah, it's almost like he's boom.
Yeah, it was clever.
So ultimately, pros and cons. I feel like there's a lot more pros than cons, but again, that's saying I have no knowledge of the comic prior. But I know, Jagger, you've done a little bit of research, and Mormon, you're pretty much an expert on it.
Yeah.
So I want to start with Mormon. What were your pros and cons?
So right off the bat, the pros, they held true to Mark. They held true to the Nolan character. I mean, like, all of the main characters for that aspect were held true. I love the fact that they dealt with Titan, because Titan is a big part of the comic as well, and he's part of the human aspect, which that also goes into one of my cons. But Titan's scene with him taking him to fight the crime lord and whatnot, and then introducing Battle Beast and all those other characters in the comic, all of those sub characters that they're fighting have been introduced. They have beef with Invincible. They've already met him. He's taken them down one by one. So they're ganging up and attacking him has a lot more hostility. There's a lot more hatred for him. Whereas here, it's kind of like a free-for-all. Like, let's go after this person in the Guardians, and let's go after this person in the Guardians.
So basically in the comics, it's a lot more like a Sinister Six kind of style.
Correct. Yeah. And here it's just kind of like, oh, here's these characters that in some pieces we've seen them, but not with Invincible.
Interesting.
With the human aspect, and this goes into one of the cons, the first villain Invincible actually fights is his high school chemistry teacher. His high school chemistry teacher's son was bullied and committed suicide, and his father, for revenge, gathered up the jocks and the kinds of kids that bullied his son. They strapped bombs to them, like would knock them out, put a bomb that was implanted into their central nervous system, dropped them into like malls and stuff, and blew them up.
Wow.
And so Mark figures out who it is by accident, and then the teacher's like, well, you know, you've caught me, but I'm gonna get the last laugh. And he pulls off, opening his shirt, and he's wearing the bomb, and Mark's like, not really, and he just grabs him and shucks him into the atmosphere. So
I mean, that is one way to deal with them.
I love that he's very pragmatic with a lot of his things. Like, if he can find a way to save or salvage something, he does. But at the same time, it's kind of like, there's not an option, and you're out of here.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny.
Another thing that I would say that was a pro is I actually really like the voice of Seth Rogen as Alan the Alien. Because Alan is
good.
Oh, I
it's
love that.
so well done. And Alan is a major part of the comic. So we're going to be seeing a lot of Seth Rogen in the future, which is also part of the fact that Seth Rogen has been greenlit to write an Invincible movie, which is still on the table. They're not stopping it because of the show.
Yeah.
So he's directly tied to this property. He's had a vested interest in it for a very long time.
Well, he's also an executive producer, isn't he?
He's an executive producer on the show as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So he's highly involved in this property. He's had an interest in it for years, which is fantastic.
It's nice to see that people, that's one of my major pros, is that the people who work on the show and the people who are voicing the characters, the people who are writing it, people who are directing it, they're all fans of the property. They're not just people who have been cast because, I mean, they're talented, yes, but they're not just cast because they're talented actors and voice actors. All these people have a passion for this project, and it shows through the work, like the writing, the dedication to the source material, with being able to change things and modernize it a little bit, but still maintaining a lot of truth about the source material while letting their passion for the source material shine through.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
One of my other cons is that the side characters to the Guardians of the Globe have not been looked at all in the first season, and they all are tied to Invincible. You find out that Neptune has a side character who's his wife that Mark has to defeat in combat, and then she tries to marry him, but he uses another character to defeat something else, and she marries that guy instead.
What?
Because Omni-Man killed her husband, she's supposed to marry Omni-Man, but instead Mark gets sent in, and she's like, well, then I'll marry you instead. And it's a whole thing, which they could go into the second season, but it really seems like they're going to pretty much just go straight into the space aspect instead.
Yeah. I feel like they're kind of streamlining a lot of the main storyline points, which can be good, but can also be bad, because a lot of the side storylines, from what I understand, are worth it.
They're really well done. And I think the other thing too is they've avoided all of the Image properties outside of Invincible as well. So Savage Dragon makes an appearance. Fire Breather, which is a cartoon that, if you watched it on CW years ago, has direct tie into Invincible, and those two characters worked well together. There's the Donald character has a lot more appearances, and they may deal with that and they might not, because they eliminated him in a pretty final fashion here. But in the comic, he is a cyborg. So I don't know if they're going to use that as the reason why he's a cyborg, or if they're just going to be like, yeah, he's dead. bye, buddy.
I mean, it's entirely plausible that they're just gonna say he's been a cyborg all along, and they kind of just backed up his brain and rebooted him.
Which that would be fantastic if they brought him back. But there's a character named the Brit who is a superpowered, invulnerable guy who makes a lot of appearances, and he's very closely tied to Mark, and you haven't seen him in any shape or form. So a lot of the characters that I got used to in the comic early on haven't even shown up, and I'm thinking they're going to try and avoid those so that they don't have to, do licensing with all these other properties.
Right. Well, from what I understand, now that they've shown that Image Comics properties can be successful outside of Spawn, because so far Spawn is the only Image Comics property that's been brought to the screen in any way, shape, or form, and it's been done to death almost. I mean, we've only had 2 iterations of him, but I mean, they've kind of run him into the ground. And now, between this and Jupiter's Legacy, people are starting to explore Image Comics properties a lot more. So I feel like they might try to start bringing in some more.
They did have a Savage Dragon cartoon back in the 90s, but I don't know if they're going to bring him back into this as well, because he's also a character that makes a lot of appearances in Invincible. But then
do you think that maybe they were playing it safe this time around because they weren't sure how it would bode with the audience?
I think partially that, and the other thing, and I just thought about this and I totally forgot about it, the author of Savage Dragon has completely and utterly done away with following the comic code at all, and the comic has become extremely graphic to the point where I would say adults only for the most part. So I'm thinking that could be the other thing, is they don't want to take that, connect it to Invincible, and then suddenly you have kids asking their mom for Savage Dragon comics, and then major problems.
Yeah. Which, granted, I mean, as a parent myself, I would not let Lydia watch Invincible until she was at least like 16. Yeah, and even then that's pushing it.
Yeah.
Right. But for every, good parent like you, there's a parent who's letting their 4-year-old watch Deadpool, and it's like, maybe this isn't the age we should be introducing this at.
Yeah.
No.
So. But no, overall, I mean, I've been extremely fond of the show. I think it's been very well done.
Yeah. Well, that being said, seasons 2 and 3 were greenlit. So do you think that there's potential that they could start, drip feeding some of those other Image Comics properties through seasons 2 and 3?
I think they can. I think if they're going to do it really well, they could do them as maybe shorts, like do like a quick thing at the end of an episode here and there. And that would be fine for, I think, some of them, and just to get them interested, even if it's just to show you characters like we have the Martian, who's currently running around on Earth, and they kind of showed you the Sequids on Mars and the havoc they're causing, and they kind of showed you the Martian watching the Omni-Man fight. But he becomes an important character throughout the show as well. So it would be interesting to see where he shows up and how he shows up in the future. I think shorts would be a great idea for the show, just to do something even on an Invincible YouTube channel where they do like a 5-minute short here and there of this character and that character, just to get people introduced.
Or what if they did like some like WandaVision style like commercial right in the smack dab in the middle of the episode or something?
They could do something like that with some of the characters for like the really established, like there's a Heroes for Hire analog that you see a lot of times in the comics, so they could show them as the hiring agency. If you need a hero, call, I don't remember the name of the team.
Now you said there's a movie that they're planning?
Yes, there's a movie that Seth Rogen got greenlit years ago to do Invincible, a live action. And that's still on the table. That wasn't discontinued with the show. So I think the big thing was seeing how successful could the live action be. So
do you think they'll go like anime style, where like the movie will kind of be like, it's like set in the same universe, but like it's like not entirely like a part of the main story that they're focusing on?
They could do that route. In a later point, they call it a reboot, and it's not a reboot, but it's tied to the story. They could even do that as the movie, like between 2 seasons. Here's the movie, which is the reboot that we've been leading to, and then go back into the show after.
Interesting.
Be interesting to see.
Now, speaking of anime, now that we have seasons 2 and 3 greenlit, do you think there's potential that? Do you think they're going to keep the same animation team, or do you think they could probably bring in some people from the anime side of things? Because I was talking to Ri-Fi about this, and we were talking about how amazing would it be if you had like some like Jujutsu Kaisen style or Demon Slayer style animation for Invincible, or do you think the animation style fits perfect?
I think the animation style fits very well. I think they do need to bring in either increasing the animation budget or bringing in some extra animators, though, because if you go back and you watch the show, there's a lot of flying scenes where he's very static, and it's obvious that they're taking like one frame and using it over and over and over again.
Yeah. And there's a lot of fights that felt very anime-esque that I feel could benefit from maybe either a higher budget or maybe a couple of other like an extra pair of hands on it. So
right, like
I think that was probably my only con too. Like some of the animation was a little bit could have been done a little bit better. Like some of the floating.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say lazy animation so much as they probably didn't have a huge animation budget, not knowing how well it would do in the first season.
Right.
So they spent money on other things instead, getting the voice actors and stuff like that. And then as a result, you have scenes where Mark's flying and his hair is entirely static and stationary.
I think my biggest con, and it's not even like a real big deal for me, it's more so for like other people. It's about the last episode. And I honestly think they're probably, especially in the kind of society we're living in now, there really should have been a trigger warning about the last episode. Because it's quite literally a depicted scene of parental abuse.
Yeah.
And that can be triggering for a lot of people, especially people with like rough childhoods. And they give no warning that that's going to be a thing. And it would be one thing if it were just like presented as a superhero fight, but it gets to a point where it's like Mark's not even fighting back anymore. He's literally sitting there just getting wailed on by his father. And it's like, that can hit people a different way. And I think they should have addressed that either before or after the show.
They should have probably addressed it even with the first episode, because Nolan goes and basically whips on Mark quite a bit in that first episode, saying, oh, it's teaching him to be a Viltrumite. It's teaching him to be a Viltrumite. But at the same time, it's like, it's rough. Like he just loves him as hard as he can in the chest. And it's like, what?
Yeah. And I'm sure a few people took a step back. It's like, wow, I remember when my parent did that to me. Ouch, that hit close to home.
Or and like tries to justify it in some fashion,
right?
Or like the age-old "this hurts me more than it hurts you."
Yeah, and that's basically the theme of the last episode. It's like Omni-Man trying to tell Mark, it's like, this is hurting me more than it's hurting you, but you need to learn, and I'm going to teach you the only way I know how, and it's through violence. I mean, he literally forces him to watch hundreds, if not thousands, of people die in front of his eyes.
And then when he's in that final committed, like, well, you're not going to learn, I guess this is it, saying, I'll just make another one, it'll take 17 or 18 years,
right?
And you're just like, oh my god, like how could a parent say that to their child?
Right. I think they should I really think they should have addressed that. I think that's the one thing they handled poorly, is addressing the fact that this is a violent show and this does have sensitive topics.
And actually it's something that they're definitely going to want to address in the future, because there are some topics that they deal with that are extremely triggering, especially later on in the show.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, if they started season 1 and they were being cautious and they kind of just went out with that, like,
I mean, there's sexual abuse and all sorts of things later on in the show. Like, it's not something that they want to just go into and just be like, hey, it's Invincible, just watch it.
Yeah, I mean, and if they don't address things like that, or if they don't go back and like do something about that, it's gonna land them in a lot of hot water.
Yeah. I think us knowing what they're capable of, I think we can kind of expect that, but you can't necessarily expect the average audience to know what to expect.
Right.
But ultimately, from here on out, what are some top things that you would like to see, Mormon, coming into the future of this series?
So one of the things that they don't address in the first season, which I'm really excited for when they address it, is why the Viltrumites are going to all of these other planets now. Because there's more than just I'm going to this planet to take over. And they avoided that topic very much so in the beginning. But it's a very important theme that recurs. And I think early in the comic it is explained to Mark, but it's been a little while since I've read the beginning, so I can't remember if it's addressed earlier or maybe a little bit midway. Second season, we should see that addressed, though. I'd be surprised if not.
Yeah, because doesn't Nolan kind of say like the idea behind it is to supply these planets with the necessary technology to live on and continue on, but to be more like Viltrum?
He does, but it still sounds like he's trying to sell Mark on the positives of being a Viltrumite, and there's a lot of negatives that he is still not addressed.
Okay.
I think it's somewhere around, if you're going by the graphic novel release, I think it's somewhere around like volume 4 or 5.
Okay.
Is where they address it. It's somewhere towards like the beginning middle.
Okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say, because it's 25 volume. It's a 25 volume series, so it goes for 100. It's 144 issues, and what was very exhausting as a fan from the beginning was that it started with a monthly release, and then things came up, and Kirkman got busy with other stuff, and then it was, maybe every 2 months we'd get an issue, and then sometimes there'd be 3 months between, and then sometimes we'd get 2 issues in a month, and then sometimes there's like 6 months, and you're like, is this still a thing?
Oh wow, that's crazy. I couldn't imagine having to just think of like a normal TV show that you're into and you're watching, and then all of a sudden it just out of the blue just like stops airing for like 6 months, and you're like, wait, what the hell happened?
Yeah, it's the same deal.
Yeah, that's interesting. Are there any specific storylines you'd like to see come to fruition?
So, I mean, I know major storylines that will come to fruition. I hope there's a character named Angstrom Levy who's extremely important to the comic, but I don't know if it's one that they'll address in this show. I feel like they might focus more on the Viltrumite / space aspect and less on the family human life aspect, because that goes back to ignoring the chemistry teacher, but we had Titan dealing with, like the inner streets and talking to Mark about all that.
Do you think there's potential that they could kind of like interweave both of those aspects?
I would hope. I don't know. I know seasons 2 and 3 were greenlit, so I'm hoping that will give them the feelings that, hey, we can go through all this, because if 2 and 3 were greenlit right away rather than just 2, there's going to be a bigger calling for it. But I don't know how streamlined they're going to try and make it, in fear of, a lot of these animated shows like Castlevania that's coming out only having 3 or 4 series and then they're gone.
Yeah. And also, I don't think it was stated that like how many episodes the next seasons will be. So maybe they could kind of lengthen the amount of episodes to kind of tell more of the story.
That would be nice.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even if they go 10 episodes, that would be something.
Yeah.
So. But yeah,
so
no, there's
Oh, go ahead.
So yeah, Angstrom Levy is something that we might or might not see. That would tie into that MCU thing. We're obviously not going to see Spider-Man running around in here. As much as I would love to see that, it's not going to happen. The other thing that I would really like to see is there's an event called the Invincible War that I won't give any spoilers on, but that would be another thing that would be phenomenal to see,
I mean, we did initiate our spoiler alert, so.
So
well, we initiated a spoiler alert about the show.
Okay.
I don't think we should go into the comics because I
Okay.
haven't read all the comics and I don't want the comics spoiled for me.
And
That's
that's
fair.
exactly what I
That's
was
fair.
thinking. Is I don't want to spoil it, especially for the viewers, but especially for you two as well, because you know when Jagger reads it or when you come across it, being like, "Oh my god, I just saw this," and be like, "I know, buddy, I know."
I just imagined like I'm like running into Mormon's arms. He's like, "Yeah, they're there. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming."
It's gonna be all right, champ. It's gonna be okay.
Xander's just standing there with all 25 volumes, crying like, "Oh my god!"
Solemn pat on the head. I toss you a baseball glove and I say, "Let's go have a catch, bud."
All right. So to close out our official review, so we'll go Mormon first. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this series?
I would say a solid 8. It's
solid
not
8.
the absolute perfect. There's definitely a lot that they could do, but in the scheme of the comic, in the scheme of superhero shows, in the scheme of just catching all sorts of viewers, it's doing an excellent job.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Jagger?
I would also give it an 8. I think they did a good job of keeping the source material intact, while gripping fans of the comic and people who have never even heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did something different for once. We don't get the typical superhero story. It's very much
Something
deals with like something we've been asking for a long time. Like people have been asking for a long time. What are the real life consequences of these superhero battles? And now we're seeing it. It's like, oh yeah, there's a body flying out of nowhere. Like all these casualties that they never address in like the MCU. They definitely address it in Invincible.
Yeah. I think that's definitely something that we've touched on in the past. But I do think they could have handled
things a lot better as far as like the sensitive content and things like that.
Yeah, as someone, as one of those people that have never heard of it before the show, I would give it probably an 8.5. Considering that I've never heard of it,
gotta be
and then it immediately hooked me. I was just like, okay, this is something to keep tabs on. But I think that about wraps up episode 9. Mormon, you want to give a nice little send off, tell the people where to find you and when you stream?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mormon, MOHRMON. I stream Friday through Monday, 8 to 10, 11 Central Time, not Eastern Time. We had that whole thing between us the other day. But yeah, no, I'm always there. I do just chatting sometimes. I do variety and just come in, poke fun at me. I enjoy it. I don't cry if people have a fun time. So.
Well, awesome. I want to thank you for joining us today. I loved picking your brain on this because, like I said, I've never heard of this before the show. So it's nice to have someone who's well versed in the topic to kind of shed some light on some of the content. So with that, thank you for joining us today, guys. Tune in next week as we're going to cover more news, and Jagger and I will be reviewing Jupiter's Legacy, the new Netflix series based on an Image comic series written by Mark Miller. So if there are any topics you'd like to see us cover on this channel, please leave a suggestion in the comments down below. And if you enjoy what we're doing here and you want to support us, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, both Jagger and I also stream on Twitch. Our links will be down in the description below. And if you're watching the recording on YouTube, I hope you have a great night. If you're watching live, I'm actually going to be omitting my post show tonight. I'm going to be a little bit more responsible and get some nice sleep because work is picking up and I need all the rest I can get. So with that being
Xander
said,
wearing his responsible hat tonight.
Yeah. So with that being said, good night, everyone, and I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Au revoir.